I still get unwound. The Central Texas rain's the strongest drink around. Next on the curve where I first got clean, I say hello to some of my friends. I might stop by the Guadalupe Dam, jump in that river for little plans. I can't forget about Luke and Bob. I packed my guitar this time. The picker circle starts right at 3, and playing with them guys gets me high. The Texas Hill Country.
Live from Houston, Texas, this is Big Ideas, Small Business with your hosts, Brian Gendron and Shavonnah Robert Schreiber. And now, the music of Max Flynn.
Starting to feel a little crazy again. I think it's time I start to pack my things. The city life has really got me down.
Welcome to Big Ideas, Small Business. This is a show by business owners, for business owners, entrepreneurs, and side hustlers. We're here to get you in business and help you stay in business. I'm your host, Brian Gendron, and we will not, unfortunately, be joined by Shavonnah Robert Schreiber today, but she is with us in spirit, and she set up this whole episode. So she is traveling and wanted to make sure she didn't torpedo our show, so she's not going to join in on unreliable Wi-Fi. But we do have a guest, a very important guest. We have Ali Nasser, who is the CEO of Altru Vista. And Altru Vista provides family CFO for small businesses. Ali.
Good afternoon, Brian. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming aboard. Just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself and about your company, Altru Vista.
Sure. So I got started in the industry about 18 years ago, and I started in the traditional financial services industry and saw that there's a lot of big issues within the industry, kind of conflicts of interest and lack of true guidance as opposed to the sales model that was out there. And as an entrepreneur and future business owner, I said, rather than leaving the industry, why don't we just create something transformative that can be a better model for clients and provide guidance and advice they were looking for versus product sales. And that was the birth of Altru Vista. And we're now kind of a boutique here in Houston, and have had some great years behind us and great years ahead of us in providing guidance for highly successful business owners and kind of bringing all of their aspects of their balance sheet and their life planning together through one process.
As a true entrepreneur, I love that approach. Why exit an industry when you can change it? I myself am actually making an exit from an industry, but I'm not. I don't view it as throwing in the towel. I'm actually pursuing what I've found to be my true passion. But that's a whole different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you say that, and immediately I want to just go down your pathway and hear more about that.
Not today though, my friend. Maybe over drinks or another time.
Sure,
but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper, just a few questions that I had for you. The first is, you just did a speaking engagement not too long ago, and the topic of the presentation was how to live your best life. And I love that because I feel like I'm living my best life. So that's a statement we hear and see everywhere. So sometimes it can feel trite, but what does it mean to you to live your best life, and how do you live this out daily?
Sure. Well, I appreciate the question. I think the speech that's being referenced is the one I did at the EOS conference, and the actual title, it's close to that, but it was, who do you want to be? And I think that connects to living your best life. But the title itself, who do you want to be, was has made a big impact in my life. I would really say the past 10 years, but really heavily the past 5 years. And it's in business and in life, things can get really overwhelming. And we have so many responsibilities to family, to business, to friends, that if you don't take control of your life, it's going to take control of you. And there's certain things, especially as a business owner, we can get brought into a million things within our own company. Anybody within the organization, there's some reason in some way that they could involve you inside of their work or have a question for you or a need. You feel as though you could jump in any place. So there's kind of limitless things you could occupy your time with. The question that I titled that speech of who do you want to be is really, it's a question of intentionality and saying there's a lot of things you can be really good at. There's a lot of things you could be pretty good at, but there's a few things that you can truly be great at. And what are those few things that you can truly be great at? And how do you align your life and your time and your daily habits around pursuit of those greatest opportunities? So now, big picture, you've heard the statistics before, right? 95% of our daily MO is subconscious. So when someone says, oh, I'm going to change my behavior and I'm going to do this, 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 and this. So if you just say, I'm going to do these 5 things, there's a 95% chance you won't do them. And that's because your subconscious MO is going to tell you, this is how I operate. You might do it the first day, and day 2, your natural behavior takes over. So to go back to your question, how do you live your best life? First, you've got to identify who you want to be. And then you've got to create intentional habits and actually create an intentional time map of how you're going to do that. So in this particular talk, what I did is I showed, I have a 365-day time map. So these are all the things I want to accomplish in a year. There are 365 days. Where am I spending my time for these days? So I put on the calendar, I want to take 10 weeks to travel and vacation. It's blocked on the calendar. I put on the calendar how much time I'm spending in my different businesses. I put on the calendar how much time I want to allocate towards special events like race car driving or visiting a certain place. And by putting that time map out there, I can then create boundaries around time. So it's not just like, well, if I don't have the time for it, it won't happen. You're making sure that you're not overstacking things and being intentional with how you spend that time. So it's kind of part that. And then the second part is, in order to grow, you've got to let go of something. And if you're holding on to everything in your life and you're a typical business owner that has to have their hand in everything and control everything, you're going to find yourself a victim of your own control or your own circumstance and never having that freedom of time. So knowing who you want to be allows you to be intentional as to what activities drive and support who you want to be. And then you can draw a time map underneath that to support it.
Yeah, to me, it kind of the simplifies or synthesize what I heard. Of you have sort of a personal vision, and then you almost set it up where it's a very simple start, stop, continue is more or less what you said. You have this roadmap of some of the things that you're gonna start doing to achieve these milestones, and you did set up milestones. And I love that you used the word boundaries. Because if it's not within my scope and my goals and it doesn't achieve my greater purpose, I don't have time for it. It makes it easier to say no, doesn't it?
That's exactly it, Brian. You nailed it. It makes it easier to say no.
Yeah, it's because there's so many things that we could be doing, to your point. And then you mentioned
synthesis.
Yeah, but then also stop, right? There's things that you're doing that are getting in your way of that, and then things that you'd want to continue. Of course, like for example, you have operating businesses; those are things that you want to keep afloat. So, very, very smart approach. And I was even going to ask, but you kind of answered it already. Like, how do you reset? But you're like, well, I'm going to do 10 weeks of travel, and I imagine, do you break free entirely on those 10 weeks of travel?
I do. I would say I'm 90%. 90% of my trips, I have no connection to the office. 10% of the trips, there's something that carried over that might have to get done, a priority. But generally speaking, I would say I get on a Friday. At the end of the day, my email goes away from my home screen. So I take the actual email icon and I move it as many pages over on my iPhone as I can. And when I travel, it's just deleted. So I don't even have, I'd have to log into a web-based version of my email to get there. I don't keep email around, and the team knows he's disconnected. I don't check in. I don't make phone calls, and I'm fully outside of the business.
Yeah, because that's when it comes to entrepreneur and everything you talked about up top, burnout becomes a real thing, and so the point of disconnection is good. And you even mentioned it. You're like, you get a few days in, you create these new habits, and then they go away. You need those reset points, I believe, as well as that compass that you talked about, setting those goals for the year.
Definitely.
So very good. I want to take you back to your business model. Okay, you had a very bold statement as far as the traditional financial model and industry was broken. So just talk to us a little bit, fill in a little bit more color to that. Tell us a little bit more about it.
And I'll speak to it from a couple of different angles. First, the aspect of planning within the industry, and then second, the actual specific financial service industry and their breaks. So from a planning standpoint, we work with business owners. And when I meet a business owner, this is the 80-90% of the business owners I meet have this story. They have 5 different advisors: tax, legal, financial, corporate attorney, personal attorney. They have 5 different plans set up at 5 different times. And certain plans are completely outdated. Certain plans were created but never fully executed. Some may have been done really well, but they're expired. And what we find is that when we pull all these plans together, that there's major planning gaps that the business owner has. And their assumption is, well, I have 5 advisors, I've got 5 different plans, I'm all set. But in reality, when we bring those plans together, there's major holes and there's major planning gaps. And this is because most professionals, they offer all of their services independent of one another. You see your tax guy, you see your legal guy, you see your financial guy, and there's no integration. And when you build a net worth, especially a sizable net worth, where you're at 10, 20, 50 million, $100 million, the size of those planning gaps could be costing you hundreds of thousands, in some cases, millions of dollars. You've outgrown your traditional model. And there's not an easy way, or at least presented in the industry today, there's not an easy way to create integration between your different advisors and your different plans. So you're paying a lot of money to get all this work done. You are assuming that it's giving you the outcome that you're looking for, but in reality, it's just waiting for a catalyst to come along to show you that there's a gap. And usually by the time that catalyst comes along, whether it's the sale of your company, a big increase in income, God forbid, even passing away, it's usually too late to fix the problem because that cost and damage has already been done. So our entire business model was based on this issue, is that there's no integration. And I could see coming into the industry my first few years in is I'm seeing all these issues. Rather than treating symptoms, how do we address the core issue? And the core issue is business owners don't have a way to create a clear vision and a set of goals for all their personal wealth. And then they don't have a way to integrate their advisors and plans together. And it's those issues and that gap that we address at Altru Vista. That's what our whole Wealth with Purpose process is predicated on, is to address those 2 major issues.
Absolutely. And I'm starting to see a lot more like integrated accounting firms kind of taking the same approach, and maybe they're missing a few of those components that you talked about. But certainly some of the better firms that I'm seeing out there are doing just that, because we create these silos, not intentionally. It's just how things grow. And then, like you said, you don't really have a checkpoint until you have this life event. And that's when you realize it. And at that point, you've already lost a bunch of money. It's already too late. And then it becomes this major headache. So right. You definitely have a clear place in the market. And it seems like you have a pretty clear customer. It would seem like somebody on the ascent. They have a growing business. Is your customer profile or avatar pretty clear? What does that look like?
Yeah. So our avatar is an established business owner. Their business is their best investment. Their family is their greatest love. They're community contributors. They typically are either owner founders or large stakeholders in their company, and they value guidance and relationships. And I'd say the vast majority of our clients are in the 20 to 100 million net worth range. There's some, I'd say our services started around 5 million of net worth on up, and we have some clients above 100 million, but the vast majority are 20 to 100 million of net worth inclusive of their company. So that's including a full evaluation on the business plus all personal assets, real estate. And our services don't just address money management, it's the whole picture, the whole planning picture.
You were describing me there for a while, and then you lost me at the financial numbers. I'm not quite there yet. I'm still young though. All right. Yeah, perfect. No, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. And then one of the things that I want to talk to you about was the most common mental blocks or misconceptions. And I'll admit I probably have some of these that you've seen regarding people about building wealth. How can we help people kind of break that mentally? I think we put our own walls up in a lot of cases.
Okay. Well, to dive a little deeper there, where you said you might have some of these blocks yourself. Where do you feel like when you say people's blocks, which particular group are you referring to? The entrepreneurs, business owners, or just society as a whole?
I mean, I would definitely say society as a whole. But if you wanted to dig into like bootstrapping business owners, which you kind of described, people, the owner founder. Yeah. I mean, like in the beginning, we're just trying to grab onto every investor, whatever it takes, credit card, anything, any capital we can get our damn hands on and just keep growing. And so it becomes hard to think about saving when you're like, every penny I can get my hands on has to go into this business. For example.
That's a great example. And I can relate to that. I took out a $30,000 credit card loan when I was 20 years old to hire my first employee. Right. I mean, I was like ready for like, give me something to support the business.
Right.
So I think one of the big misconceptions, one of the big blocks is for a business owner, their best investment or most important investment is their own company. And a lot of business owners immediately assume, well, my best investment's my business, so anything wealth services related wouldn't be for me because I invest in my own company. And it couldn't be further from the truth, because it's almost like someone who's into fitness or health and says, well, the only thing I do is lift weights. Well, there's a lot of other things. There's diet, there's cardio, there's stretching, there's pliability, there's all these other aspects to health. And from a planning standpoint or building wealth standpoint, business owners have a different opportunity set when it comes to their planning and investments. So from a planning aspect, there's 6 different aspects to entrepreneurial wealth. And there's your balance sheet strategy, which is how you're invested between your company or private equity or the stock market or bonds or cash or Bitcoin, whatever it is that your investments include. So that's a whole strategy in and of itself. Then there's your cash flow and your liquidity. How much capital do you need for your company? How much you need for expansion? How much is coming in and out for expenses? Then you've got lifestyle and legacy, which is what's for you and what might be for your children or charity. And then there's asset protection or risk management for your assets. And then you've got an exit strategy, which is what is the purpose for your business? Are you going to sell it one day? Are you going to pass it on to your child? What is the exit strategy for the whole company? And all of these aspects together are all supportive of a business owner building wealth. But the common conception in the marketplace is, well, wealth means money in the market. And there's this whole spectrum of planning that is completely separate from money in the market, but people hear wealth or they hear financial services and they immediately think money in the market. And that goes back to your question about what's broken in the industry, specifically within the financial services industry, is there's this term financial advisor, but in reality, what goes on in the marketplace is there's an investment advisor or a product advisor or an insurance advisor. True financial guidance and advice is rarely found because most of the industry is incentivized to manage money or sell product and not give constructive financial guidance and advice. And that's really what most people need, especially business owners, because they in many cases have 80 or 90% of their net worth invested in one stock. And when you have 90% of your net worth invested in one company and sometimes 200% of your emotion, planning can become quite challenging, and there's a lot of other aspects to address. So in short, there's much more to wealth services than just investments, and business owners really need that comprehensive guidance more than they might think.
I agree. And to maybe take this like more of a macro type lesson from what you just said, as far as just differentiation in general, look at what the frontline people in any given industry, look at how they're incentivized And that's often where you can find where things are broken, right? And then, where you can disrupt, and because things are swaying towards what's in the best interest for the companies, and how can you disrupt that? That's essentially what you did, and that can be.
Brian, you nailed it. I mean, Charlie Munger, I think he talks about this. If you really want to know the true part of the conversation, know the man's conflicts.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's the root cause. Well said.
Yeah, perfect. Well, just trying to honestly, what the way you disrupted the industry and what the services you provide make a lot of sense. And they make a lot of sense for the people that listen to the show. So this is really great stuff. Let's take a look about culture. Big on culture on this podcast and in general. You mentioned EOS earlier, so obviously that's having rocks and all that stuff, right?
Sure.
The AltruVista team looks very energetic. Okay, so tell us a little bit about how you built your team. And, what do you look for in your team members? Sure.
They are an energetic group. They're passionate and fun to be around. And it's just an incredible team. I'm truly blessed. So I know some of them will listen to this, and I really appreciate each and every one of them on the team. So we look ahead to the organization that we want to be, or the organization we constantly are striving to be, to try to fill and grow those roles in advance of immediately needing them. So we'd rather be proactive with our team than reactive, and take our strategic path and say, here's what we need to support it. But the simplest answer I can give you to how we hire team members is based on our core values. And our core values as an organization kind of ties to the same thing we started with, who do you want to be, and creating that intentionality as to what fits. So as an organization, who do we want to be? And we've got 4 core values. The first is create a personalized experience. This is for our clients. We want a personalized client experience. Drive growth and innovation, constantly challenging the status quo to find better ways to do things, better ways to deliver things. Show gratitude, which is kind of living and being in gratitude on a daily basis. And then finally, do great things together and accomplish things not just individually, but collaboratively as a team. So every time we're looking for a new candidate, yes, they need to be smart. Yes, they need to be passionate about their role and have a great skill set. But those 4 core values, do great things together, drive growth and innovation, show gratitude, and create a personalized experience. That's got to be something they want. And if they align with our core values, we can go to the moon. But if there's somebody with incredible talent, but they don't align with one of those core values, we've got a fundamental break in the system, and that'll be a damage to culture. And culture is the most important part of a business. It's critical. It's the engine that drives everything.
Your core values start with do, create, show. These are actionable things. These are verbs that encourage people to do things. Sometimes we try to synthesize them down to one word, and it almost loses meaning. It doesn't necessarily provide any direction. So I appreciate that y'all have them actionable as your core values. Let's do this. You don't have to necessarily say a name, but brag on something that recently, or it doesn't have to be recently, but something your team member has done that has demonstrated living out those core values.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go with the first story that came to mind. So one of my team members, Sarah Catherine Johnson, and she's our client service associate. So one of the objectives for 2021 was to be the year of the wow. And the story of the wow is, best way I can describe it is Napoleon Hill says, do everything that is required and then a little bit more. And I shared this at a State of the Company speech some time ago, and there was a whole rollout that my team came up with on their own to say this year is going to be the year of the wow. We want to create wow client experiences. And it may have been in March or so that I'm going through my emails, and I see an email from one of my client's assistants. And it looked like one of those emails. She was in tears when she wrote it, and she was thanking Sarah Catherine for the incredible note that she received from Sarah Catherine and from Altru Vista. I'm thinking, what is this note? Like, what in the world would make someone this emotional and this happy for this experience? And I read through it, and she coordinates one of our clients' financial affairs, kind of like their family office administrator in a way. And it was Administrative Assistance Day, but this individual is not an administrative assistant per se, but Sarah Catherine took the time to write her a letter and include her boss on the letter to express how incredible it has been working with her and the experience that she's created and how she feels that it's an extension of our team and that there's no way they could accomplish what they accomplished without her. And we knew from the response in that letter that that administrator who rarely ever hears that type of appreciation. And it just changed her day, week, maybe even her year. And this was all created from someone in our team saying, well, you know what, how do we create a personalized experience? How do we create a wow experience? And that story, I'm just reading the final email, and it was practically bringing tears to my eyes because I know the whole story with everything we do with this particular family.
Yeah, the year of the wow, and that was, certainly what rings true out of your values is the show gratitude in that instance, and then just the it's something that I've always done and always appreciate is going out doing the handwritten letter. It just says more. It says that you've thought it out, that you've actually sat down, pen and paper. It's not typing up an email. You get a million emails a day. It goes in the mail or it shows up on your desk. It's just what a great way to show appreciation and really just change somebody's day. And then it's so cool to have that attached to your brand and your company and your culture. So that's a great story.
Yeah. And I can't take credit. I can't give credit for the letter. I think it was an email letter, but nonetheless, it was a personally written letter.
Handwrite them.
You have to be careful with the word letter sometimes.
Handwrite them, baby. That's the best way to do it. Handwrite them. Yeah. Oh yeah, wax seal it. I mean, the more you can go all the way with it.
That's old school. Wax sealing.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
you're romantic.
but just show gratitude and show appreciation and create these wow experiences for your clients is just the right way at it. And it's neat. You also mentioned that that's something that your team came up with on their own. Like it wasn't necessarily something. Let me ask you this: Are you EOS implemented for AltruVista? You guys?
Yep, we've been using EOS for 5 years now. We started on that journey after I read Rocket Fuel back in 2016. In fact, that the speech that you asked about at the beginning, that was at the keynote speech at the EOS conference. Mm-hmm. Was kind of on the whole EOS journey. So it's been a very cool experience.
So I imagine you then have you in this scenario you're the visionary type lead, and then you have an integrator within your company.
I do. I'm the visionary, and then Melissa is my integrator, and then we have an implementer as well that helps us implement EOS. Excellent.
Yeah, those. If that's implemented correctly, did you all work with the implementer consultant? Okay.
Yes, we did. We tried doing it on our own first.
I hear that all the time.
And it was challenging, to say the least. And I think using an implementer is key. Having that consultant that does it for a living, the expertise and input they can give you changes. Even if you can do 80% yourself, it's that last 20% that having a good guide, or your term you used when we started, a Sherpa, having somebody that can take you through that is really impactful. And I think you get just so much value out of that.
And that almost rings true with any sort of implementation, doesn't it? To have some sort of third-party consultant that fills in those gaps.
Definitely. We see it for our clients. It's the cost of one mistake being made can sometimes overweigh, every cost of implementing it right. It's in most cases it's not worth it, especially when you have the resources to use a service.
Absolutely. One thing that I hear quite a bit about specifically EOS, I know we're going a bit down our EOS rabbit hole, but that's okay, is when to start. Do you think that your company started at the appropriate time? Would it have been better to start early? What are some of the things that you would think you want to have in place before you're ready for an implementation?
That's a great question. So we definitely implemented too late. If I could go back in time, I would have implemented EOS probably when I had about 6 employees. And I think about that level from an employee count is when I think it starts to make sense. Technically, Gino says it's from 10, I think it's from 10 employees to, I forget the cap, and they're, from 1 million to 200 million or something like that in revenue. But I think I've heard constantly that once you get past about 4 or 5 people, you can't have more than 4 or 5 direct reports. And the moment you start needing management, and entrepreneurs generally are not good managers, that's just not part of our natural DNA. I mean, I'm here to,
Same.
1 out of 20, the statistics say can do both, be that owner, founder, and be a manager, but 19 out of 20 can't. So the sooner you can get that manager in and use an operating model, I think the better. For us, we were late, but I had to go through the pain of experiencing trying to build a business myself, go through the burnout, go through the pain, go through the life lesson of falling on my face in order for me to realize, Ali, you got to let go of some control, and you got to hire somebody to come in here and to help you build a team versus doing it all yourself. And so I needed that fall on my face period of a few years before EOS, but in a perfect world, I would have implemented it the first time I scaled up versus the second.
And that's the entrepreneur's way, right? I have to learn all these things on my own, fall on my face before I'm like, oh yeah, there is I can give up. There's a better way. I can give up control. Things will still be fine if I pass this off to somebody, or at least I think somebody said expect 80%. If your expectations are 80% of the way you would do it, that's a passing grade.
Brian, you nailed it, and I can tell you're an entrepreneur just by your answer.
Yeah.
That's our MO.
Well, here's a fun one. So last question is, what's something about you that no one knows? This might be like a hidden talent, a dream. You can go any way you want with it.
So I'm going through, when I started in the industry, I had no real pursuit or interest to be in the financial services industry. Like I'm not a finance guy, and I can be a finance guy. And I've written books and writing a book and taught sessions and speak on all these topics. But inside myself, my passion is really helping people find their best path forward, being that guide, being that friend, that confidant. And I came into the industry because the industry had a lot of those aspects to it. And financial services just happened to be the service that was there. It could have been anything. And I think something that a lot of people don't know is they assume, oh, well, this guy's like, he's passionate about, finance and investments. And don't get me wrong, I do have passion for those things. But what I'm way more passionate about, and what drives me a whole lot more, is impacting people's lives and helping them find their best path forward and simplifying the equation. And I think I'm at a stage now where the last, 17, 18 years in business, the last 12 years with Altru Vista has led me to a point now where there's this breaking of just Ali is the CEO of Altru Vista. And Altru Vista is a great team, great organization. I'm not going anywhere, continuing to be the CEO of Altru Vista. But there's also this birth of this, how do we take the individuality of Ali's personal goals and mission and life purpose to impact charity and business owners and people, society as a whole, and kind of break into that motivating positive change as this new chapter. So that's what's coming now. And there is a new business that's emerging from all of this. One that's connected to wealth, and another one that's entirely passion project, a non-business business, but to impact people that want forward growth and forward momentum and are looking for ways to get breakthroughs. So that's kind of something that not many people or very few people know about me. And so.
Well, that's an exciting, I kind of started there in parallel to starting my businesses. And if I were to do it over again, I think I would have had the it's kind of like the thing where you have to put the mask on yourself before you put it on the kid. Like it would have been best for me to really grind out and grow my business as opposed to having this charitable, thing that from the beginning. Now, not that I don't know, you can't. It's still it worked out fine, and it continues to work out fine. But it would have been good I would have had more resources to give some of these causes, as opposed to the beginning. It was really just my time and my sweat and a little bit of money here and there. If I would have really grounded out for a few years and grown something and grown some staff, I could have really put really make an impact like you were talking about. So I think you did it the right way.
Yeah. You said it well with the put your mask on first. I think once you've built a successful company, you have more resources to be able to be intentional as to how that manifests.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to you on starting the charitable purpose first, though. And I think that's an amazing.
Yeah.
Very few people start in that direction first, and I commend that. I love it.
Well, let me ask you though, the name of the company, we didn't talk about this, the origin of it. It starts with Altru. Is that altruism? Is that where the birth of that? Okay.
Yeah. In fact, the reason for the initial name, it started with the tagline, which was wealth with purpose. And I was like, there's got to be intentionality behind wealth, because wealth is not an end, it's a means. And you've got to discover what your end is, because if you think it's money, you'll get money and you realize you're unfulfilled, and you realize there's the next step. So wealth with purpose was the first part. And Altru Vista represented a combination of altruism, which our clients were charitably inclined. We as an organization are charitably inclined, and also selflessness, that we wanted to be an independent firm that gives guidance and advice selflessly versus with conflicts. So the altruism connected to two different angles, the charity and the selflessness. And then Vista is vision or view. So creating that altruistic vision or that selfless view and being able to turn that into guidance and advice for the visionary, the owner, that was the birth of Altru Vista.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect branding for what y'all do and what you stand for. So that's great. Do me one last favor. If you have any way for people to find, like I said, y'all services are perfect for the people that generally listen to this show. So where can people find your company, anything else you want to let them know? Sure.
The easiest way to find our company is altruvistawealth.com. So ALTRUVISTA wealth.com. And from there, you can take a look at what we do. And if you want to connect with us, you can right there schedule or see if you're a good fit and schedule a meeting. And just put in the notes request. I'd love Ali to be there at the meeting. And if I can make it to that intro meeting, I'd love to be there. And the other website, if anyone has an interest in some of the personal things that are going on, just alinasser.com, ALINASSER.com. It's my personal website that'll have updates on my book that's being released and just ways to stay connected with me personally in any of the work that I'm doing. So those are the two ways.
Wonderful. Well, listen, we'll put all those into the show notes. When your book comes out, please let us know. We'll make an announcement through all of our channels. Awesome. And I'd love to grab a copy myself. And do you have the title for the book yet?
Yeah, it's The Business Owner's Dilemma.
Okay. I like it. It kind of sounds very E-Myth-esque type.
I think it has some connections to E-Myth. That was one of my favorite books in business systems. So I think it connects a lot to the entrepreneurial mindset and how that mindset will impact paradigms and the way that we plan and the key dilemmas that business owners will face. And there's 3 critical dilemmas, and it outlines those dilemmas and kind of helps the business owner create their best path forward.
What's the release date of The Entrepreneur's Dilemma?
The tentative release date is October, but I believe it's probably going to get pushed here just based on our publishing timeline and some of our edits being done. So I would say earliest Q4 of this year, latest Q1 of 2021. Sorry, 2022.
Well, we'll look for it. Ali Nasser from Altru Vista, thank you so much for joining us. What a wonderful episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Now get out there and close some business. Hi, guys.
Brian, thanks so much. It was a pleasure to meet you and to chat with you.
Same.
Central Texas reigns the strongest drink I found.
Thank you for listening to Big Ideas Small Business. Follow us at BISB Media and visit our website at www.bisbmedia.com.